No one inside that luxury cafe knew they were about to witness a moment that would expose hidden prejudice, shatter egos, and change a powerful family forever. A billionaire mother walked in believing wealth made her superior. A quiet black father sat nearby believing love was enough. And one 12-year-old boy, brought to a blind date he never wanted, would unknowingly stand at the center of a decision so shocking it would leave an entire room speechless. Before we continue, take a second to support the channel. If you believe real stories can challenge minds and touch hearts, hit the like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss stories that truly matter. Evelyn Cross entered the cafe with the confidence of someone who had never been told no. Her heels clicked against marble floors, diamonds caught the light, and conversations softened as heads turned. She was a self-made billionaire, a tech empire builder, a woman used to control. Walking beside her was her son, Lucas, 12 years old, tall for his age, but clearly uncomfortable in a jacket that felt too stiff and expectations that felt too heavy. This lunch wasn't about him. It was about Evelyn's belief that even her son's future relationships needed careful management. The blind date had been arranged through an elite matchmaking service meant for powerful families. Evelyn insisted on attending, claiming she was only there to observe. Lucas knew better. They were seated near the window. Evelyn scanned the cafe instantly, cataloging status the way others read menus. Expensive watches, designer purses, quiet signs of wealth. Then her eyes paused on something she didn't expect. A black man sat a few tables away, dressed simply, leaning toward a small girl who colored happily with crayons. The girl looked about 6 or 7. She laughed softly, and the man listened with full attention, smiling like her words mattered more than anything else in the room. Evelyn felt an irritation she couldn't immediately explain. She looked away. Minutes passed. Lucas swung his legs slightly beneath the table. "Is she late?" he asked. "Patience," Evelyn replied, checking her watch. Then the cafe door opened again. The black man stood, taking the little girl's hand, and began walking toward Evelyn's table. Her posture stiffened. "This must be a mistake," she muttered. The man stopped in front of them and spoke calmly. "Hello, I believe we're meeting here." Evelyn stood up immediately. "This table is reserved." He nodded. "Yes, for my daughter and your son." The room went quiet. Lucas looked up, confused. "You're her dad." The man smiled gently. "Marcus Hill." He extended his hand. Lucas shook it without thinking. Evelyn did not. Her eyes moved to the child. "You brought her to a blind date?" she asked, disbelief sharp in her voice. Marcus glanced down at his daughter. "Her mother passed away 2 years ago. It's just us." Evelyn folded her arms. "This is completely inappropriate. My son is 12. Marcus nodded. "I know. So is the girl he's supposed to meet." Evelyn stiffened. This service promised compatibility. Marcus met her gaze evenly. "Compatibility starts with respect." The little girl tugged Marcus's sleeve. "Daddy, are we in trouble?" Marcus knelt instantly. "No, sweetheart." He looked back at Evelyn. "If this makes you uncomfortable, we can leave." Evelyn nodded quickly. "That would be best." But before Marcus could move, Lucas stood up. His chair scraped softly against the floor. "Wait," he said. Evelyn turned sharply. "Lucas, sit down." He didn't. "I just want to talk," he said quietly. For a few minutes. The cafe had gone silent again. Evelyn felt eyes on her, something she hated. She leaned toward her son. "You don't know these people." Marcus straightened. "Neither do you." And in that moment, the billionaire realized control was slipping through her fingers. Because the choice her 12-year-old son was making would force her to confront something money had never prepared her for. And what happened next would shock everyone watching. Evelyn Cross felt something unfamiliar tighten in her chest as Lucas remained standing. 12 years old, and already defying her in public. That alone was unacceptable. But what unsettled her more was the calm in his voice. It wasn't rebellion. It was curiosity. 5 minutes, Lucas said, looking at her, not pleading, just asking. The cafe waited. Evelyn measured the moment the way she measured risks in business, calculating image, control, perception. Finally, she exhaled sharply and sat back down. 5, she said. "That's all." Marcus nodded once, grateful but not submissive. He pulled out the chair for his daughter, Ava, and helped her sit. Lucas sat too, his eyes lighting with relief. The server approached awkwardly. unsure whether to take orders or retreat. Marcus ordered a juice for Ava. Lucas asked for the same. Evelyn said nothing. She watched Marcus closely now. The steady way he spoke to his daughter, the way he made sure she was comfortable before doing anything else. No desperation, no insecurity. That annoyed Evelyn even more. So, she said finally, voice cool, what do you do? Marcus didn't bristle. I'm a high school history teacher. Evelyn raised an eyebrow. And you thought this was appropriate? Marcus met her gaze. Our kids are 12. They're not here to discuss mergers. They're here to talk, maybe laugh, maybe become friends. Evelyn scoffed softly. My son has a future to consider. Marcus nodded. So does my daughter. Lucas leaned toward Ava. What are you drawing? Ava smiled shyly and turned her paper. It was a picture of a house with a tree and two stick figures holding hands. That's me and my dad, she said. Lucas smiled. It's cool. Evelyn noticed something she hadn't planned for. Lucas was relaxed, comfortable, more than she'd seen him in months. That irritated her deeply. This service clearly failed, Evelyn said, pulling out her phone. I'll be filing a complaint. Marcus didn't argue. That's your right. Evelyn paused. She expected defensiveness, anger, but Marcus remained composed. You don't seem surprised, she said. Marcus shrugged slightly. People judge quickly. Evelyn's eyes narrowed. You think this is about race? Marcus looked at her steadily. I think it's about assumptions. The words hit harder than Evelyn expected. She straightened. I don't make assumptions. I make decisions based on facts. Marcus smiled faintly. Facts like clothes? Or bank accounts? Evelyn opened her mouth, then stopped. The cafe seemed quieter again. Lucas looked between them, sensing the tension. Mom, he said softly. Ava likes the same video games I do. Evelyn ignored him. What kind of father brings his child into this environment? She asked Marcus. His expression changed, not angry, but firm. The kind who doesn't have a choice, and wouldn't leave her alone even if he did. Ava looked up. Daddy always takes me everywhere. Marcus smiled down at her. As long as I can. Something flickered in Evelyn's mind. An image of Lucas growing up surrounded by nannies, tutors, assistants. She pushed it away. Weak sentiment. Time's up, Evelyn said abruptly. Lucas, we're leaving. Lucas hesitated. Can I at least say goodbye? Evelyn clenched her jaw but nodded. Lucas stood and held out his hand to Ava. Bye? Maybe we can play online sometime. Ava grinned. Yeah. Marcus stood as well. Thank you for staying, he said to Lucas. Then he looked at Evelyn. I hope one day you'll see past labels. Evelyn picked up her purse. I see reality, she said. And reality doesn't mix well with charity cases. The words landed heavy. A few nearby patrons shifted uncomfortably. Marcus stiffened, but he didn't respond. Instead, he placed a hand gently on Ava's shoulder. Come on, he said. They walked away heads high. Lucas turned back once, watching them leave. Evelyn caught the look. Something twisted in her chest again, this time sharper. As they exited the cafe, Lucas spoke quietly. Mom, why did you talk to them like that? Evelyn stopped walking. Because, she said, choosing her words carefully, the world is not fair, and pretending otherwise gets people hurt. Lucas looked up at her. But they didn't hurt anyone. Evelyn didn't answer. That night, Evelyn couldn't sleep. Her mind replayed the scene. The calm in Marcus's eyes, the way Ava smiled, the way Lucas had stood up to her. The next morning, she received an email from the matchmaking service. Apologies, refunds, explanations, and then one final line. For your awareness, Mr. Marcus Hill declined compensation. Evelyn stared at the screen. Declined? No lawsuit. No demand. No leverage. That bothered her more than anything else. She closed the laptop slowly, unaware that this encounter was far from over, and that her next meeting with Marcus Hill would force her to make a choice that could cost her reputation, her pride, and everything she thought defined her worth. 3 days later, Evelyn Cross found herself thinking about someone she had no intention of ever seeing again. Marcus Hill. The name surfaced in her mind during board meetings, during private calls, even during dinner with Lucas. It irritated her. She wasn't used to people lingering in her thoughts without permission. She told herself it was unfinished business, nothing more. Yet when Lucas mentioned Ava casually, asking if she thought Ava liked space documentaries, Evelyn felt an unexpected stab of discomfort. That's enough, she said more sharply than intended. Lucas went quiet. Immediately, she regretted it. Regret was another emotion she rarely allowed. Later that evening, Evelyn did something she almost never did. She searched Marcus Hill online. The results surprised her. No scandals, no arrests, no lawsuits, just a modest digital footprint. A local high school website listed him as a history teacher. There were photos of student projects, community events, and one article from years ago about a teacher who used his own savings to fund a field trip for students who couldn't afford it. Evelyn leaned back in her chair. That didn't fit the narrative she'd built. She closed the browser, unsettled. The following week, Lucas's school announced a mandatory parent involvement day. Evelyn hated those, but she went. Image mattered. She arrived late, sunglasses on, assistants waiting outside. As she walked the halls, voices echoed from classrooms. Then she stopped. Inside one room, a familiar voice spoke with calm authority. She looked in. Marcus Hill stood at the front, animated, engaging a room full of restless teenagers who were actually listening. On the wall behind him were student-made posters about civil rights, equality, and courage. Evelyn froze. Marcus noticed her through the glass. Their eyes met. For a brief moment, something unreadable passed between them. He nodded politely. She hesitated, then nodded back. Lucas spotted her from across the room. "Mom," he whispered excitedly. "Mr. Hill is Ava's dad." Evelyn forced a tight smile. After class, parents mingled. Marcus approached calmly. "I didn't expect to see you here," he said. "Neither did I," Evelyn replied. Ava ran up to Lucas, excited. "I told my class about you." Lucas grinned. Evelyn watched them. Two children connecting without filters, without fear. "Your students respect you," she said before she could stop herself. Marcus smiled. "They feel seen." The word lingered. Seen. Evelyn wasn't sure when she'd last felt that. As they spoke, a commotion erupted down the hall. A parent loudly complained about lowering standards and certain kinds of families. Marcus stiffened. Evelyn recognized the tone. It was one she'd used herself. She watched Marcus step in calmly, de-escalating the situation, protecting his students. Something shifted inside her. For the first time, she saw not a man beneath her, but a man standing firm without power, without money, without fear. That night, Evelyn drove home in silence. Lucas finally spoke. "Mom, can Ava come over sometime?" Evelyn opened her mouth to say no, but the word didn't come. She remembered Ava's smile, Marcus's restraint, her own reflection in the cafe window. "We'll see," she said quietly. It wasn't a yes, but it wasn't a no, and that scared her more than refusal ever had. Weeks passed. The world moved. Then one morning, Evelyn received news that threatened her empire. A leaked report, a looming scandal tied to one of her largest investments. The board panicked. Advisors pushed damage control. And then, unexpectedly, she received a call from Marcus. "I don't know if you'll take this seriously," he said, "but one of my former students works in investigative journalism. There's something you should see." Evelyn hesitated. Pride screamed no, but instinct said listen. She did, and what she learned would force her to choose between protecting her image or finally doing the right thing. Evelyn listened in silence as Marcus explained what his former student had uncovered. The leaked report wasn't just a rumor. It was proof that one of Evelyn's biggest partners had been exploiting communities, cutting safety corners, and hiding it behind shell companies. If the story broke the wrong way, Evelyn's name would be tied to it. Her brand, built on innovation and ethics, would fracture overnight. "Why are you telling me this?" she asked finally. Marcus's voice was steady. "Because the truth matters more than comfort. And because your decisions affect people who don't get a voice." The words struck harder than any legal threat. Evelyn thanked him curtly and hung up. She spent the night reviewing documents, pacing her penthouse, watching city lights flicker like accusations below her. By morning, her advisors urged silence. "Delay. Denial. Let it blow over," one said. "We can settle quietly." Evelyn stared at the city skyline and thought of Ava coloring at a cafe table, unaware of power games adults played. She thought of Lucas standing up to her. She made a choice no one expected. She went public. She cut ties with the partner, released the documents herself, and accepted responsibility. The media exploded. Stocks dipped. The board was furious. But something else happened too. Workers spoke out, communities felt heard, and public opinion shifted. Evelyn had never lost so much money in a single day. She had also never slept so peacefully. Weeks later, Evelyn found herself at a modest community center, standing beside Marcus as they watched Lucas and Ava laugh together over a science project. The contrast to her usual world was jarring and grounding. "You didn't have to do any of that," Marcus said quietly. Evelyn nodded. "I know." She paused. "But I needed to." The room buzzed with warmth, not wealth. No one cared who she was. For once, she didn't either. As they talked, Evelyn admitted something she had never said aloud. "I thought control was love. I thought protection meant distance." Marcus smiled gently. "Love is presence." The simplicity humbled her. That evening, Evelyn invited Marcus and Ava to dinner. No press, no assistants, just people. Lucas beamed. Ava hugged Evelyn goodbye. And Evelyn, billionaire, titan, untouchable, felt something crack open inside her. The next morning, a headline spread across the internet. Billionaire CEO risks empire to expose corporate abuse. The comments were divided. Praise, criticism, hate. Evelyn read none of them. Instead, she watched Lucas pack a small gift for Ava, a book on space. "Mom," he said, "thank you." Evelyn realized then that wealth could build empires, but courage built legacies. She wasn't the same woman who had walked into that cafe. And the unthinkable thing she had done wasn't just standing up to a corrupt partner. It was letting go of who she thought she was supposed to be. The cafe where it all began looked smaller than Evelyn remembered. The marble floors were the same, the soft music unchanged, but she was different now. She sat at a simple table, no diamonds, no assistants, no urgency. Across from her sat Marcus, and beside him, Ava, swinging her legs just like before. Lucas sat next to his mother, 12 years old, and smiling freely. This time, there was no tension, no judgment, just people sharing space. Evelyn watched her son laugh with Ava, and for the first time, she understood how much of his childhood she had almost managed away. "I owe you an apology," Evelyn said, looking at Marcus. "Not carefully, not strategically, honestly, not just for that day, but for the way I see the world." Marcus didn't rush to respond. "Apologies matter," he said gently, "but change matters more." Evelyn nodded. "I'm trying." Ava leaned forward. "You're nicer now," she said innocently. Evelyn laughed, a real laugh, unguarded. "I hope so." News of Evelyn's decision continued to ripple through the business world. Some investors pulled out. Others stepped forward, inspired by her transparency. Evelyn redirected a portion of her fortune toward education programs, quietly at first. She funded public schools, teacher grants, and after-school centers, especially in communities long ignored. She didn't put her name on buildings. She didn't give speeches. Marcus didn't ask her to. He didn't need to. Lucas changed too. He grew more confident, more curious. He asked questions. He challenged ideas. He learned that worth wasn't measured by bank accounts, but by character. One evening, as he worked on homework, he looked up and said, "Mom, I'm glad you didn't make me leave that day." Evelyn swallowed hard. "Me too." Months later, at a school event, Evelyn watched Marcus receive an award for community impact. The applause was loud, sincere. She clapped the hardest. When Marcus caught her eye, he smiled, not in gratitude, but in recognition. Two people who had met on opposite sides of power, now standing on equal ground. As the evening ended, Evelyn stepped outside, the city lights glowing softly. She thought about the word unbelievable. It wasn't the cafe confrontation. It wasn't the financial risk. It was the realization that the greatest return on investment she had ever made wasn't money at all. It was humility. It was listening. It was letting a single black father and his daughter show her what real wealth looked like. Because sometimes, the unthinkable isn't what we do to protect our status, but what we're brave enough to lose to become better human beings.